Andrew unconsciously put his hand down to his diaper to grasp his crotch and reaffirm the truth of what Gail had said. When he felt nothing but padding beneath the plastic covering of his diaper, he panicked and squeezed as hard as he could with his tiny hand. Tears began rolling down his face when he realized she was right. No matter how hard he compressed the fluffy padding that covered his crotch, all he could feel was the disposable diaper. For all intents and purposes, Keowastoan had turned him into a eunuch. Andrew bent his head in defeat and wept bitter silent tears at his fate. The third woman leaned down close to his face and said condescendingly, "Well, I wouldn't get upset about it if I were you. I doubt you'll ever have many opportunities for dating women anytime in the future. The only females you'll be getting close to will be your babysitters. I seriously doubt that any of them will have any sexual interests in you, will they, baby?" When the woman delivered her final verbal blow, Andrew began bawling like one of the infants in the nursery. The women collectively shook their heads as Gail said, "Little babies who make a fuss in our nursery get a timeout in the playpen. I don't think you're ready to play with the other babies just yet." Gail moved behind him and put her hands beneath his armpits to pick him up from the rear. Then she carried him to the nearest empty playpen and held him helplessly over the plastic pad of the playpen before dropping him unceremoniously to its floor. Andrew was startled by being dropped and stopped bawling immediately. Gail bent down low and said over the railing of the playpen, "See, you're quieter now. You're just not ready for the company of your peers in diapers. Maybe later this afternoon if you're good you can play with them." She blew a kiss at him derisively and suddenly Andrew realized just how attractive Gail was, even though she was bent on humiliating him. He couldn't help it. Her abundant breasts had shifted towards her shoulders in her bra when she leaned over the railing. Gail's blouse wasn't buttoned completely to the top and Andrew's eyes boggled as he started at the vast cleavage and watched her teats slip up and almost out of her bra. Despite the humiliation the women had heaped upon him, Andrew was fascinated with the burlesque-like performance of the comely woman's anatomy. He couldn't tear his eyes away from the promise of the boobs that seemed ready to jump out and dangle in front of his face at any moment. Gail noticed his look and laughed as she rearranged herself while straightening up. She knelt carefully at the side of the playpen and said a low erotic tone that dripped with encouragement, "Does baby think I'm sexy? Does hims like my boobies?" She stood to her full height to tower over him and continued patronizingly, "I'm sorry, baby, but I think you're too young for me. Maybe if you're really sweet and behave yourself today, I might think about it. Frankly, I don't go for men. Especially ones who look like little baby boys and have to wear diapers. Still, if you're good today, I might think about talking Keowastoan into letting me babysit you diapers and feeding him when all the other infants were fed, they would leave him to his own devices." When it was time for breakfast of finely ground rice cereal, he watched in horror as 4 of his compatriots were carried to high chairs that sat against the wall and were strapped in the chairs, bibbed, and fed simultaneously by a team of daycare workers. Once the feeding session was done, each of the babies had its face wiped with a damp washcloth and received a bottle of formula. Then the babies were put into one of the 4 playpens that separated the cribs from each other and left to finish their bottles on their own without adult assistance. Then the next group of 4 babies was seized and similarly treated, then they were given bottles and removed from their high chairs. Each one was placed in a playpen that was occupied by a baby who was busily suckling, and the process was repeated for the 3rd time with the last 4 babies in the room.